The morning of the will reading arrived sharp and frigid with pale sunlight slicing through the frosted glass windows of Victor and Associates. I kept to myself in the corner, observing Michael pace around like a man rehearsing for his coronation. In his designer suit and smug grin, he looked every bit the heir apparent, which truthfully, he likely was. "Miss Everton," the lawyer said, snapping me out of my thoughts, "shall we begin?" I gave a small nod, my fingers tightening on the leather armrest. At 30, I was moments away from confirming what I had always suspected about my place in the family. A lifetime of being measured against Michael had left little room for doubt. Mr. Victor cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses as he began, "To our son Michael, for his unwavering loyalty to the family enterprise and upholding the Everton name." The list that followed was staggering: our Hudson Valley estate, the Newport Villa majority stakes in Everton Industries, and a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio. Michael's grin widened as each asset was named, his satisfaction almost radiating off his tailored suit. Then Mr. Victor flipped to a new page. "To our daughter Sophia," he said after a pause, rifling through the papers. "We leave the painting Autumn Twilight currently displayed in the main house's study." A hush settled over the room like a heavy curtain. Michael chuckled openly, not bothering to disguise his amusement. "A painting?" I whispered, my throat dry. "That's it?" "It was your mother's favorite," Mr. Victor said, his voice faltering, clearly embarrassed by the stark contrast. Michael strolled over and put his hand on my shoulder, his grip firm enough to send a sharp sting through my skin. "Hey, don't be upset, sis. I'll find you something at the company mailroom duties should suit you." I brushed off his hand and rose to my feet. 3 generations of Everton wealth had just been handed over to Michael. All I received was a lone painting my mother once picked up from an obscure gallery years back. I'd always found it lovely, a twilight forest with odd geometric patterns tucked between the branches, but calling it a fair share felt laughable. "That's everything?" I asked Mr. Victor, trying to keep my voice steady. He gave a small, regretful nod. "You have 7 days to retrieve the painting?" I walked out in silence, tuning out Michael's voice calling after me. The drive to what used to be my parents' home, now officially, Michael's estate, felt like a strange dream. The gate guards eyed me with caution, but waved me through once I mentioned the artwork. Helen, the housekeeper, met me inside with glistening eyes. "Oh, Miss Sophia," she murmured, pulling me into a tight embrace. "What they did to you wasn't fair at all." I clung to her, holding back tears. There were times Helen felt more like a mother to me than my actual one. She gently lifted the painting from the study wall and wrapped it snugly in a thick blanket. "Your mother would sit in front of this for hours," Helen said quietly. Toward the end, she kept whispering about numbers patterns. We assumed the illness was affecting her mind. I leaned in, studying the canvas with new intent. As the last rays of sunlight filtered through the window, the abstract shapes appeared to ripple and rearrange themselves into patterns I had somehow missed all these years. "Numbers?" Helen nodded solemnly. She'd traced those patterns over and over with her fingertips. Mr. Everton couldn't stand it. That evening, back in my modest apartment, I mounted the painting above my worn-out bookshelf. It had a haunting beauty. The forest scene was intricately painted, every leaf etched with surgical precision. But the geometric forms clashed subtly with the natural setting. They felt intentional, as though the artist had embedded a message only I was meant to find. I poured a glass of wine and sank into the couch, eyes fixed on the painting, the last thing my mother ever gave me. Was it just a cruel parting gift? A reminder that I was never enough for them? Or was there something hidden they never told me? My phone lit up Michael again. I silenced it like I had all week. He was probably eager to gloat or extend that mailroom job offer one more time. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and began digging into the origins of Autumn Twilight painted by someone named James Morrison. No exhibitions, no sales records, almost nothing online. The gallery where Mom had bought it had shut down over a decade ago. It was as if the painting had slipped in from another world. Then a message from Michael appeared. No need to sulk, Sophia. You could always join me at the company. It's what our parents envisioned for us. I gave a dry laugh. My parents had always wished I mirrored Michael, obsessed with numbers and prestige, not buried in ancient canvases and museum archives. I'd let them down by forging my own path, and now their judgment echoed louder than ever. Yet I couldn't tear my eyes from the painting. Those strange patterns stirred a memory steganography, a technique I'd studied in restoration classes, hiding secrets in plain view. I stood and approached the canvas with sharper focus. The geometric forms bore faintly contrasting hues, invisible at a glance, but discernible to a trained eye. They weren't random. There was a rhythm, a design. A sudden knock shattered the silence. It was after midnight. Who the hell would come now? Peering through the peephole, I saw Michael, hair unkempt, suit wrinkled. Sophia, he said sharply, we need to talk. It's about the painting. I didn't respond, just watched him silently. He'd always scoffed at art. So what was he doing here, obsessed with something he once laughed off? Please, Sophia. His tone cracked, a tremor I'd never heard from him. There were instructions from Mom about that painting. You have to return it. Instructions? My pulse quickened. Maybe I hadn't imagined it all. Maybe the painting held more than memories. Maybe it held secrets. Leave, Michael, I said through the door. It's mine, the only thing I got. You don't get it, he snapped. That painting, it's more than you think. Hand it over and I'll wire you $6 million. $6 million for something he mocked earlier that day? I stepped back, thoughts colliding in my head. Say what you will about Michael, he never threw money around without reason. If he offered that much, the painting's true value had to be far greater. I heard a soft clatter, keys jingling. Could he really still have my spare key from last year, when I was sick? I yanked the painting from the wall and bolted to my bedroom, slamming the lock shut just as the front door creaked open. Sophia. Michael's voice rang through the space, sharp and urgent. Where the hell are you? Where's the damn painting? I clutched the painting tightly, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Under the soft bedroom light, the geometric figures appeared to shimmer faintly. That's when I saw it, a design I hadn't noticed until now. The shapes weren't arbitrary, they aligned into numbers, camouflaged seamlessly into the forest. Impossible to detect unless you were trained to see. Sophia. His voice moved closer. You have no idea how much that painting's really worth. I flipped the canvas, examining its backside. The canvas was expertly framed, yet something felt wrong, a subtle gap where there shouldn't be one. The doorknob rattled violently. Open the door, Sophia, now. My fingers shook as I worked the tiny gap open. A delicate slip of paper drifted out, inked with my mother's graceful script. My breath hitched as I read the opening words. To my beloved Sophia. If this letter is in your hands, it means you found what I always trusted you would. You notice what others overlook. You challenge what others blindly follow. Now, sweetheart, you'll finally understand why your father and brother feared you more than they ever admitted. The banging on my bedroom door intensified, but it was nothing more than background noise. I was too absorbed in my mother's letter, my hands trembling as each line unveiled a truth that shattered my reality. The numbers weren't random symbols, they were coordinates, bank details, and access codes that could topple the very core of Everton Industries. And Michael, still yelling behind the door, had no clue that everything he knew was about to collapse. I lost track of time, seated on the bedroom floor, rereading my mother's words while Michael raged on beyond the door. My fingers quivered as I soaked in each deliberate sentence. The figures in the painting, along with the codes enclosed, will unlock the truth behind Everton Industries. Your father and brother built their success on stolen brilliance, hijacked patents, and betrayed trust. I was one of those creators, Sophia. And you, my precious girl, were always meant to carry my legacy. A sudden crash from the living room snapped me out of my trance. Michael clearly decided patience was no longer an option. "I'm calling the cops!" I yelled, fingers punching 911 into my phone. "Do it!" Michael roared. "I'll tell them you stole corporate assets. That painting's Everton property." But I saw through the lies now. The letter laid everything bare. My mother, a genius inventor, had hidden her life's work in plain view for years. The painting was never just art, it was the key to a buried archive of proof. "The coordinates will take you to my private lab," the letter went on. "Everything you'll need is there. But tread carefully, Sophia. Your father and brother won't hesitate to destroy anyone who threatens their secrets." I heard Michael's footsteps fade, then the sharp slam of the front door. After a deep breath, I stepped out of my bedroom. The apartment was in shambles. Michael had torn through every inch in search of the painting. But the mess didn't matter. I had a mission now. I began by snapping detailed shots of the painting, making sure every unusual angle of the geometric designs was documented. Next, I transcribed the coordinates from my mother's letter, checking each digit twice. Her instructions were clear. Layering the patterns in the right sequence would uncover a complete access code. My phone vibrated once more, a message from Helen, our longtime housekeeper. "Miss Sophia, some men are clearing out your mother's belongings. They seem focused on the study. Please watch yourself." They were wiping away traces, erasing whatever secrets she'd left behind. There was no time to waste. The coordinates pointed to a secluded property in the Berkshires, nearly a 3-hour drive away. In her note, she revealed she'd bought it using her maiden name, ensuring neither my father nor Michael knew it existed. According to her letter, the lab was hidden underground. Its entrance resembled a weathered storm shelter, but was protected by advanced security tech. The initial sequence from the painting would unlock it. I threw together essentials: my laptop, a few changes of clothes, the letter, and the painting swaddled in blankets. As I stepped outside, a black SUV idled silently across the street, its presence far from coincidental. Michael clearly wasn't finished with me. The road to the Berkshires felt longer than ever. For nearly an hour, the SUV tailed me at a steady pace, never too close, never too far. I zigzagged through every detour and back road imaginable, finally shaking them off near the Massachusetts border. By the time I arrived at the location, the first light of dawn was breaking. At first glance, the property appeared deserted, just a neglected field and an old farmhouse in desperate need of repair. As I wandered the property, matching the geometric patterns in the painting with the layout of the land, it became clear. My mother had devised a brilliant system. These patterns weren't just figures. They formed a map. The scattered arrangement of trees and rocks lined up perfectly with the shapes in the painting. The storm cellar was exactly where the painting had pointed. The rusted doors seemed untouched for years, but as soon as I entered the first sequence on a hidden keypad, they creaked open effortlessly, revealing a staircase leading into the unknown. As I descended, motion sensor lights flickered to life, casting faint shadows on the walls. The air grew colder with each step, the hum of the ventilation system becoming more pronounced. At the bottom, another keypad awaited. I keyed in the second sequence from the painting. What unfolded before me stole my breath. It felt like stepping into another world. Sterile white walls, sleek technology, and rows of softly whirring machines. But what truly stunned me was the wall lined with patents and prototypes, innovations I immediately recognized from Everton Industries. But there was one striking difference. Each bore my mother's original signature. "Oh my God," I breathed, inching closer. These weren't imitations of Everton's designs, they were the blueprints. My mother hadn't merely watched from the sidelines. She was the buried brilliance behind the entire empire. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years froze me in place. "Impressive, isn't it?" I turned slowly and stopped cold. My father stood in the doorway, unchanged from the day he supposedly died. And beside him Michael stood grinning, smug and victorious. "You didn't actually believe your mother kept this place a secret from us, did you?" he asked, entering the lab. "I'll give her this," he added, eyes gleaming. "Hiding the coordinates in art? Brilliant. We've spent months trying to find this facility." I stumbled back, gripping my mother's letter. "You're supposed to be dead." My father gave a cold smile that never reached his eyes. "Sometimes the best way to stay hidden is to let the world think you're gone." A chill slithered down my spine. "Your mother's death? Tragic? Mine?" He shrugged. "Convenient. The will reading it had all been a setup." "You used me to find the painting," I whispered. "We needed you to lead us here," Michael said, moving to block the exit. "Your mom changed all the security settings. Only you had the keys now." "Now," my father said, approaching slowly, "you're going to help us erase this place, wipe out every trace of your mother's legacy. Our patents must remain untouched." But they had overlooked one fatal flaw. While they monologued, I drifted closer to my mother's central terminal. Her letter had warned of a last resort failsafe, the Clarity Protocol triggered by a hidden numerical code. "Actually," I said, fingers moving fast, "you're the ones who should worry." The lights flickered violently, then bathed the room in ominous red. A calm, synthetic voice rang out overhead. "Clarity Protocol engaged. Transmitting evidence to press and authorities. Data is immutable." My father's expression twisted in fury. "What did you just do?" "She called it her insurance," I said firmly. "Everything here patents, proof of corporate theft. Every forged document has just gone public. Everton Industries won't survive this." Michael sprang toward me, but the lab reacted first. Sirens howled, and the lab's failsafe sealed every exit with a deafening clang. The lab became our prison. All of us, trapped with the truth that would bring their empire crashing down. "She anticipated this," I said coldly. "She knew you'd come for her work, so she built a system you couldn't silence." Through the high basement windows, flashing red and blue lights painted the walls. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. My father and Michael locked eyes, panic overtaking arrogance. The painting sat by the door, swaddled in blankets, its cryptic shapes now etched permanently into my mind. What once looked like nonsense had mapped the path to everything, to reckoning, to revelation, to liberation. My mother's last offering wasn't art, it was war. It was rebellion coded in brushstrokes. And when I saw the realization hit their empire dissolving into dust, I felt nothing but peace. I smiled, because this wasn't the end. It was the prologue, and this time the truth would roar. The next 2 days unraveled like a fever, dream cops, cameras, headlines. From my hotel room window, I watched the empire collapse, its stock crashing, its reputation in free fall. Disgraced CEO found alive, faces massive fraud charges. The headlines screamed, "Empire built on theft. The secret genius, a mother's legacy," they declared. And I watched it all burn. My phone buzzed nonstop, reporters, attorneys, ex-staff. Everyone wanted a piece of the fallout, but I only answered one. Helen, the housekeeper who'd once been invisible, had more secrets to unveil. "Your mother knew this day would arrive," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's why she left you one more message." An hour later, I sat in her modest living room, cradling a final envelope. Not blueprints, not numbers, a story. "My beloved Sophia," it began, "now that the truth about Everton Industries is yours, it's time you learned the truth about yourself." As I read, the scattered puzzle of my life began snapping into place. My mother hadn't been a pawn, she'd been the strategist, quietly orchestrating my path to this very moment. Those art history classes he'd mocked, they'd been lessons in decoding. They trained my mind to see beneath the obvious, to find signals in silence. Restoration taught me to breathe life into broken things. And truth, too, could be restored. "When your father shut you out of the company," she wrote, "he unknowingly forged your greatest strength. While Michael learned to polish a lie, you learned how to shatter it." A sharp knock cut through the quiet. A woman in a tailored suit stood at the threshold, briefcase in hand. "Miss Everton? Samuel Chin, Securities and Exchange Commission. We need to talk about your mother's intellectual property." The following hours were a whirlwind seminar in genius-level foresight. She hadn't stopped at exposing theft. She'd kept inventing, hidden in the shadows. The painting hadn't just revealed old crimes. It had unlocked the future. "She registered these patents under a trust," Samuel said, laying out the papers like treasure maps. "A trust naming you the sole heir," Samuel said, his voice steady. My fingers shook as I sifted through the papers, patents, contracts, and rights. They were all mine. Not only the stolen inventions of the past, but new creations ahead of their time. "Everton Industries doesn't just owe you compensation for the stolen patents," Samuel said. "They've built their empire around your mother's innovations. They can't function without them." "So what does that mean for me?" I asked, piecing it all together. "It means, Miss Everton, you now have full control over the very company that discarded you." The next morning, while my father and Michael rotted in jail, I walked into Everton Industries headquarters, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the new queen of the empire. The board, cornered and desperate, had no choice but to agree to my terms if they wanted to keep the company alive. In my father's old office, I found another shock. A hidden safe behind the very painting that had once adorned the wall. The combination? The last sequence of numbers from the painting, of course. Inside, I found a personal journal. Each page a record of stolen ideas, of betrayed geniuses, but most crucially, it contained a list of names. People like my mother who had been robbed of their rightful place in history. A month later, I stood before cameras, unveiling the new face of Everton Industries at a press conference. "Everton Industries was built on stolen dreams," I said, my voice ringing out. "But today, we start making things right. A foundation will ensure every inventor wronged by the old guard gets what they're owed. And we're transforming this company into what it should have been from the start, an incubator for innovation, where the brilliant are lifted, not exploited." The painting that started it all now hangs in my office, a constant reminder of the hidden truths we often overlook. The geometric shapes that once hid my mother's secret now stand as symbols of something greater, the foundation of a future based on honesty, not deceit. Michael's letters came from prison, mixing threats with desperate pleas for assistance. I responded with one simple image, the painting, now placed exactly where our father's portrait had once hung. He'd get the message. His world of lies was over. My father remained silent as expected, but it no longer mattered. The truth he fought to suppress had become his legacy. Richard Everton would be remembered not as a visionary, but as a thief who stole the genius of his own wife. Late one evening, just as I was about to leave, Helen handed me a final letter from my mother. It was timed perfectly, arriving 1 month after the company's transformation began. My dear Sophia, if you're reading this, you've done more than expose the truth. You've begun to rebuild from the ashes of deceit. I never wanted you to inherit a corrupt empire. I wanted you to build something honest, something worthy of your heart. I ran my fingers over her handwriting, feeling more connected to her than I ever had before. The once worthless painting had proven itself invaluable. It was the key to everything. More importantly, it had been my mother's way of showing me that I had inherited something far more valuable than money or power: the strength to stand by the truth. I had inherited her vision of a better world. 2 years after the transformation, Everton Industries, now rebranded as Aurora Innovations, is unrecognizable. What was once a titan of industry is now a beacon of integrity and forward thinking. We've risen to the top not only as a leader in tech, but as a company dedicated to ethical practices, proving that doing the right thing can lead to success. Through our foundation, we've helped countless inventors reclaim their stolen work, while our incubator program has opened doors for many to chase their dreams. The painting still hangs proudly in my office, a quiet reminder of the past, but now it brings a sense of calm. Its geometric shapes, once filled with hidden messages, now represent the clarity we fought for. There are nights, late into the dark, when I could almost swear the patterns move, as though my mother's presence lingers, offering me new clues to decipher, new revelations to uncover. But the most profound truth had always been there, right before me, just like the numbers. Success founded on deception is bound to fall apart, while success grounded in truth and fairness will endure. Michael was freed from prison last week. He reached out, asking for a meeting to discuss how we could rebuild our family. I haven't replied yet. Some patterns I've come to understand are best left undisturbed. Instead, I channel my energy into shaping the future. Every year, the company holds an innovation fair where aspiring inventors can present their ideas freely, without the fear of their creations being stolen. The winner from last year was a young woman whose journey echoed my mother's, exceptionally talented, overlooked, yet resolute in her vision. As I passed her the trophy, my mother's painting was mirrored in the glass. The geometric patterns appeared to sway with approval, a reminder that the most valuable legacies aren't those we can grasp physically, but those that shape us at a deeper level.